At her 60th birthday gala, Betty stepped to the podium, beaming at 80 guests.
All my daughters, except the one we don't talk about.
Susan filmed from her seat, her phone screen, capturing the uneasy shift in the room. Back in the service hall, the caterer's lead, Marcus, stood next to the untouched birthday cake.
The owner hasn't arrived. Per our contract, the cake cannot be released without her signature.
I am the host. There is no such clause.
Susan's hands shook as she dialed the emergency contact number from the catering contract. The call connected to a personal cell. The voice that answered stopped her cold.
I am the owner. The cake stays in the truck unless I am invited in.
Susan's blood ran cold. She knew that voice. 4 days before the gala, Linda sat in her home office, the catering contract for an upcoming event resting on her desk. The guest list ran 3 pages. She scanned the names with the same precision she applied to every menu she ever wrote.
60 names. Every cousin, every distant friend from her mother's carefully curated circles, but not the daughter she'd raised.
Above her desk, an old family photo showed a teenage Linda standing stiffly beside a smiling Betty, a performance of closeness. The contact for the booking was Susan, the middle sister who still believed she could keep the family from shattering into silence. The confirmation call came at 4 o'clock, punctual as always. Linda answered without glancing at the caller ID.
Susan's voice filled the line, hurried and anxious. Hi, it's Susan, calling to finalize Mom's 60th. We really appreciate you taking the job.
Linda kept her tone flat, unrecognizable. She didn't offer her name, and Susan didn't ask for it.
We're happy to accommodate. I'll handle the menu and the cake personally. The owner takes special interest in milestone events.
After hanging up, she opened her binder to a blank page and began sketching a cake design, so detailed it was almost a blueprint. The story behind that sketch stretched back to Linda's teenage years, when her mother first taught her that love was a door that could be locked from the inside.
She never missed a chance to remind me I wasn't the daughter she wanted. I was just the one who stayed too long.
In the house where she grew up, Betty's attention was a currency awarded to whoever performed best for her audience.
So I built something she couldn't touch. A business registered under a name she'd never recognize.
Meridian Catering. No Caldwell, no Bennett. Just a quiet, efficient brand that clients loved, and Betty would never trace back to the daughter she'd erased. By 25, Linda had a commercial kitchen, a fleet of 2 vans, and a reputation for flawless execution. She never advertised under her own name. Every contract, every invoice, every recommendation went out as Meridian, never Linda.
It wasn't fear. It was strategy. The moment I used my name, the family would find a way to make it theirs, to claim credit or tear it apart.
So when her sister called about Betty's party, Linda was ready, not to reconcile, but to remind. She reached for the photo frame on her shelf and laid it face down. Some memories worked better as fuel. The next morning, Linda walked into her commercial kitchen while the ovens were still cold. On the whiteboard, the gala menu had been plotted in her handwriting. Every course accounted for.
Appetizers, mains, desserts, all approved by Susan. All except the one thing nobody asked about.
She slid the binder onto the counter and pulled the cake stand toward her, lining up fondant and a piping bag.
You haven't done the cake yourself in 2 years. This one matters.
It does, and I need you to enforce something for me on Saturday, no matter who asks. If I haven't arrived by the time dessert is called, the cake remains in the back. Nobody touches it without my signature.
Your signature only. Not the host. Not the planner. Got it.
He didn't ask why. The answers were already written in the piping she was laying down. Flower by flower, by Thursday evening, the cake sat finished under a glass dome, waiting. 2 days before the gala, Susan sat at her kitchen table with the final timeline, her phone buzzing every few minutes.
Everything was confirmed except the one thing she couldn't control, her mother's speech.
Across town, Betty stood before her hallway mirror, index cards in hand, rehearsing the lines she'd written herself.
I've been blessed with 2 wonderful daughters, the ones who still bother to show up.
Susan heard the draft later that evening, when Betty called to practice over the phone, and the wording made her stomach tighten.
She knew exactly who the missing daughter was. The public exclusion was calculated.
Meanwhile, Linda reviewed the final prep list from her home office. Every crew member assigned and briefed.
Betty could write any speech she wanted. The cake would have the last word.
Susan arrived at the venue for a final walkthrough. Her clipboard, a shield against the chaos already brewing. Betty called to confirm the cake flavor one last time. Blissfully unaware that the caterer she hired was the daughter she had written out of the evening. Friday night, Linda returned to the kitchen alone. The cake rested under its dome, finished and waiting.
The sugar flowers blurred as she considered calling it off. Then the guest list flashed in her mind.
Marcus entered the kitchen, clipboard in hand, and stopped beside her.
Everything is packed. The cake is flawless. We're on schedule for tomorrow.
You remember my instruction from Thursday?
No signature, no cake. I won't give it to anyone else, no matter what.
They rolled the cake cart to the loading dock together, the van's interior already chilled and waiting. Marcus loaded the cake box into the hold, fastened the straps, and turned to her with a brief nod. When the van pulled out of the lot, Linda stood alone in the kitchen, the empty cake stand reflecting the overhead lights.
There was no version of this where she was the one who ended up small. Not this time.
On Saturday evening, the banquet hall glittered with string lights and a red carpet entrance. 80 guests filed in. Betty stood at the door, air kissing every arrival, her diamond bracelet catching the light.
The menu was flawless. The timeline tight. If anything went wrong, it would land on her.
In the service kitchen, Marcus and his team moved through the final countdown. Trays loaded, sauces finished.
The cake stays in the van until the dinner shift. I want it out of sight until we need it.
By 7, the room was full. The first courses served, the wine glasses half empty.
Susan caught Marcus near the kitchen door. Everything ready for dessert?
The cake is perfect, but the owner hasn't arrived yet, so we hold until she does.
Susan nodded, not thinking twice about the condition. She had more immediate fires to put out. In the main hall, guests leaned into their conversations, unaware the evening's centerpiece was still locked in a van. As the dinner plates cleared, a waiter handed Betty a microphone. She walked to the podium with practiced grace.
To my darling friends, thank you for celebrating 60 years. To my family, I see my 2 beautiful daughters right here.
Then she paused, smiled, and added the line that silenced every clinking glass in the room.
Susan held the phone steady, but her knuckles were white against the case.
Did she really say that? A woman whispered to her neighbor, pearls swaying as she leaned in.
In the service hallway, Marcus caught the words through the open door. He straightened his tie and gave a small nod to his team.
She knew it was coming, but watching 80 faces process the insult made her feel sick.
A toast to the future, and to those who choose to be in it.
The applause was patchy. More than one guest set down their fork. Betty glided back to her seat, oblivious to the cold eddy her words had left behind. The dessert bell chimed, and 2 staffers wheeled out an empty table, the cake's assigned spot bare.
What is this? Where is the cake? This was supposed to be the centerpiece.
Marcus stepped out of the service hallway, his expression unchanged.
Per contract, the cake cannot be released without the owner's signature. She hasn't arrived.
I don't care about signatures. I paid for this event. Bring it out.
Susan rushed over, her clipboard pressed to her chest.
Is there a number we can call? This must be a misunderstanding.
The emergency contact is on page 4 of your contract, but the owner's signature is the only override.
The guests at the nearest tables stopped eating, forks hovering. Susan fumbled for her phone, the contact number already burning in her pocket. Susan pressed the call button, her hand trembling so badly the screen blurred. The line connected after 2 rings. In her car, 3 blocks from the venue, Linda watched the caller ID flash. She let it ring twice, then answered.
Meridian Catering. Owner speaking.
Linda, I don't understand. How are you the owner? This was our caterer.
I own the company, Susan. The cake stays in the truck, unless I receive a personal invitation to walk in. That's the contract.
You are not stepping foot in this venue. I'd rather have no cake than see your face.
Then the cake leaves. I hope your guests enjoy the rest of the evening without it.
She ended the call without another word, then immediately dialed Marcus's number on speed dial.
She refused. Pull the cake back to the kitchen. We're done.
Already rolling back. We'll be out of sight in 5.
Marcus signaled, and the team pushed the cake cart toward the rear door. The cake cart rolled past the empty dessert table, sugar flowers catching the light.
Is that the cake? They're taking it away? What happened?
Please, everyone. There's just a small contract issue. Dessert will be out shortly.
But her words landed in a room that had already stopped listening. Betty stood frozen near the head table, her evening bag clutched in both hands.
This was supposed to be her night. Now the only thing people would remember was the missing cake.
By 9 o'clock, the guests had pulled on their coats and vanished. Betty stood alone beside the empty cake table. Susan dialed the number again from the empty hallway. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. The gala ended without a toast. Under fading lights, the head table held only an empty space. Linda returned home just after 9 and dropped her keys on the counter without turning on the light.
She'd won every round tonight and felt none of the satisfaction she'd expected.
Her phone lit up with Susan's name. She let it ring, then pressed the side button to silence it. Across town, Betty had ordered wine before midnight. The phone rang while she was still pouring.
Betty, I heard the cake never came out. The owner, was that your Linda?
Betty's voice cracked as she tried to spin the story, but her friend had already made up her mind.
She tried calling Linda 3 more times that night, each voicemail more desperate than the last.
Linda saw every missed call, but the conversation she needed to have wasn't ready yet. By Sunday morning, Betty's phone buzzed 4 more times before breakfast. The gossip had leaped from table to table overnight.
I am just saying, it doesn't look good. You should call some people before this gets worse.
By Monday afternoon, 2 book club friends called Betty during lunch. Both ended the conversation quickly.
Betty, excluding your own daughter and then blaming the caterer. We've known each other too long.
A third friend sent a terse text. I can't come to book club anymore. Betty stared at it until the screen dimmed. Susan sat at a cafe, having just spoken to Betty, and dialed Linda's number with heavy fingers.
You've called 11 times. Is she okay?
Mom's friends are pulling out. 2 of them told her they can't be seen with her. She's losing everyone.
And what does she want me to do about it?
She won't ask, but maybe if you didn't post anything.
She had her chance to invite me. She refused. I decide when the story gets told.
Linda ended the call and headed to the kitchen. The cake was going somewhere it would actually matter. Linda drove to the women's shelter on Oak Street. The cake box strapped into the passenger seat, like a passenger she owed a second destination. She lifted the box carefully, the sugar flowers still perfect, and walked through the front door.
Is that what I think it is? A worker asked, her voice brightening as she saw the box.
It's a birthday cake. No one should have to eat it alone.
The worker carried the cake to a long table. Women and children drifted closer, drawn by the scent of vanilla. Linda raised her phone and framed the cake against the soft orange light of the room. The faces behind it blurred, but alive.
Best birthday I never went to. The caption formed before she even typed it.
She typed the line, let it sit on the screen, then saved it as a draft without posting. A child reached for the first slice, and the room filled with a quiet, grateful murmur. Outside, Linda leaned against her car and looked back through the window. The cake was where it belonged. The story could wait. That evening, Linda sat on her couch, the draft post still open on her screen. She'd waited 2 days. Now it felt like the right time.
The caption was the truth, and the truth was the point. No apology required.
She reviewed the photo, The cake in that warm room, the blurred faces. No filter needed. Her thumb hovered over share. Then pressed. The post went live. Within seconds, a notification pinged. Then another. Comments rolled in. This is iconic. Your own mother? What happened?
Let them ask. The story was already out there. I just gave it the right headline.
She set the phone aside, but it wouldn't stay silent. Every few seconds, another buzz. The like counter climbed past 100, then 300. A local influencer had shared it. Linda watched the screen, a faint smile settling. She hadn't expected this speed, but she wasn't sorry. By the next morning, the post had crossed 10,000 shares. News outlets were calling it the birthday cake revenge. Susan saw the headline on her phone while pouring coffee. Her stomach tightened, and she set the mug down too hard.
She stared at the screen. Now the whole world knows how broken our family is.
Linda's inbox had blown up. 62 new messages, most of them catering inquiries, sat unread. Her business Instagram gained 1,500 followers overnight. The viral post pinned at the top. The post itself had become a landing page for the curious. People wanted to know the story behind the cake.
Yes, I am the owner. I'd be happy to discuss the story, but only if you mention the catering business.
By that afternoon, a regional lifestyle blog had published a long-read piece headlined, "The Birthday Cake That Refused to Show Up." Susan watched the interview clip later that evening, her jaw tight. Linda on screen looked utterly unapologetic. By Friday, Linda's calendar was full through August. The story had become a brand, and she was finally getting what she'd built alone. While Linda's inbox swelled, Betty finally saw what her daughter had posted.
Best birthday I never went to. The words burned into her screen and into her chest.
Below it, comments rolled like a storm. Monster, vindictive, the worst kind of mother. She scrolled with trembling fingers, then threw the phone onto the cushion as if it had caught fire. The book club group chat arrived an hour later, a formal notice that her membership had been terminated. Susan found her in the kitchen that afternoon, still in her robe, the curtains drawn against daylight.
Mom, people are treating you like a pariah. Maybe if you just apologized to Linda or anyone.
Apologize? For what? She's the one who paraded our family's business online.
She looked at her mother and realized the woman would never change, even as her world collapsed.
Susan picked up her bag. Then, I can't help you either. A week after the gala, Linda walked into her expanded kitchen. 3 new hires were already at their stations. She signed the final batch of new client contracts, each signature a quiet claim on a future her mother couldn't touch. Fred unpacked a new mixer. The team applauded when Linda announced the numbers. Best quarter ever. Later, she sat with Marcus reviewing the next big booking. The calendar was solid through autumn. That afternoon, her phone lit up with Susan's name. Linda answered. Susan's voice was thin, asking if they could meet, just sisters, no mother.
Tuesday, 2 o'clock. No mom, just us.
She didn't ask for an apology. She agreed to a conversation, but on her own terms.
Maybe Susan deserved a chance. Maybe this was enough.
She hung up and leaned back in her chair. The victory was cold, but clean. On Tuesday, Linda chose a cafe with small tables and no history. She arrived first and ordered black coffee. Susan walked in 5 minutes later, her bag clutched too tightly. She slid into the chair across from Linda without meeting her eyes.
I am sorry I didn't warn you about the speech. I should have said something the moment I heard it.
You were scared. I know how she works, but I need to ask. Are you here to recruit me back into the circus?
Number. I am here because I miss having a sister. I don't want to be part of the war anymore.
Linda set her cup down slowly, measured. She understood the plea, but trust was a different currency.
Then we can try. But I won't see Betty. Not now. Maybe not ever. That boundary doesn't budge.
I understand. It's more than I expected. She nodded. a tear slipping sideways.
They ordered another coffee and talked for an hour. Not about the cake, but about jobs, apartments, ordinary things. The fragile peace between them wasn't forgiveness. It was a start. 3 months after the gala, Linda stood in her new, sunlit office, the city skyline behind her. Bookings were solid through December. She paused at the shelf, where an old family photo still sat, its frame dusty from months of avoidance.
She picked it up, stared at the frozen smiles for a long moment, then deliberately laid it face down.
That part of her life was over. Not in anger, but in a quiet decision she had earned. Later, her phone lit up with an unfamiliar Illinois number. She watched it ring twice.
She knew who it was. The silence on the other end was always louder than any apology.
Without hesitation, she pressed block number and set the phone aside. She drove home along the river. The evening light warm and amber, her mind finally quiet.
The cake had done its work. So had she. Neither of them owed anyone an encore.
That night, her reflection in the window showed a woman who had built something no one could take away. One ordinary morning, Linda arrived at the kitchen to find her team already prepping for a wedding that weekend. She tied on her apron and joined the line, the rhythm of whisks and timers filling the room. Marcus caught her eye and gestured with a whisk. She laughed, the sound easy and unforced. No one spoke of the gala. The future had crowded it out, with tastings and deadlines and laughter. 12 blocks away, at the women's shelter on Oak Street, a staff member opened the freezer and lifted out a small container. Inside was the last slice of the birthday cake, still good after being frozen. The sugar flour had crumbled, but the cake was intact. She set it on a plate, placed a fork beside it, and smiled. Nobody here knew the whole story, only that it had been good. The best birthday Linda never attended had become the one that fed someone who needed it. The cake had done its work, so had the woman who baked it. The fork rested beside it. And the story, at last, was over. The title of this story is, Mom Invited 80 People to Her 60th Birthday, but me. The caterer refused to serve cake. It began with a speech that excluded, and a cake that refused to appear for anyone. A daughter who built a catering empire in secret, and a mother who never suspected, until the moment the phone rang and the owner's voice demanded entry to her own party. The cake stayed in the truck. The gala ended without dessert, and a story went viral overnight. What you just watched was a reminder that cruelty has a way of booking its own caterer in cold silence. The screen fades to black now, the final image, a slice of cake on a paper plate at a shelter. Not the birthday she'd imagined, but the one that mattered to the people who needed it. Mom invited 80 people to her 60th birthday, but me. The caterer refused to serve cake, and that made all the difference.